The rain poured heavily that evening. Aroha stood on her sister's doorstep, her 5-year-old daughter Lonnie, shivering beside her. They had nowhere else to go. Her marriage had just ended, her savings were gone, and she thought, at least her family would take her in. But when the door opened, laughter from inside faded into silence. Her mother's voice was cold. Her sister's husband scoffed. And then, the words that broke Aroha's heart came like a dagger. We have no space for her. They didn't even look at Aroha. They were talking about little Lonnie, her child, her world, standing right there, clutching her doll with trembling hands. Aroha swallowed the tears, smiled weakly at her daughter, and whispered, "It's okay, baby. Mommy will find us a new space, one no one can take away." That was the night everything changed. Aroha once had everything. A good job, a happy home, and a family that was proud of her. They used to show her off, saying how lucky she was to marry a rich man. But when her husband's business failed and he left her with nothing, everything changed. The same people who once praised her began to treat her like she was a burden. Her mother avoided her calls, her sister spoke to her with fake sympathy, and her brother-in-law made jokes behind her back. When Aroha finally went to her family's house for help, she hoped they would understand. She thought they would open their arms and say, "Don't worry, we're here." But instead, she was met with cold faces and harsh words. They didn't see her pain, they only saw her struggle. Her mother sighed and said, "You should find somewhere else for now. It's better for you." Her sister nodded quickly, pretending to agree out of concern, but Aroha could see the relief in her eyes. Standing at the door with little Lonnie beside her, Aroha felt the world close in. The rain was falling hard, and her heart felt even heavier. She looked down at her daughter, who was holding her hand tightly, trying to be brave. Aroha didn't want Lonnie to see her cry, so she forced a smile, wiped her tears and said softly, "It's okay, baby. We'll be fine." When the door closed behind them, something inside Aroha broke, but something else also started to burn. A quiet fire of determination. She realized that night that she could not depend on anyone else anymore. She would have to stand up, even if her legs were shaking. With only a small suitcase, Lonnie's school bag, and a few coins in her pocket, she walked away from the house that once felt like home. The rain soaked through her clothes, but she kept walking. Every step felt heavy, but her mind was clear. She would not beg again. She would not cry in front of them again. She would build a life from the ground up, not just for herself, but for her little girl. That night, as they waited for a bus under a dim streetlight, Aroha held Lonnie close and whispered, "We'll find our place, baby. And one day, they'll see. We never needed their space to shine." Aroha and Lonnie spent their first nights in a small, run-down motel by the roadside. The walls were thin, the floor creaked, and the flickering lights in the room made it feel even colder. Lonnie tried to hide her fear and shiver by pointing at the tiny lights above the ceiling. "Look, Mommy. Stars," she said, smiling, trying to make the best of their new life. Aroha hugged her tightly, whispering, "Yes, baby, stars," while silently crying behind her daughter's back. She didn't want Lonnie to feel the weight of their struggles. Days turned into weeks, and life in the motel became their routine. Every morning, Aroha would leave early, walking to different offices to clean floors, empty trash cans, and do small chores. By evening, she would rush to a local diner where she washed dishes, scrubbed pots, and served food to people who never noticed her tired eyes. Every coin she earned seemed to vanish the moment it touched her hands. Bills, rent, and Lonnie's small needs swallowed everything. Yet she never complained, keeping her strength hidden from her little girl. One night, after counting the coins and seeing they barely covered the motel, Lonnie climbed into Aroha's lap with worried eyes. "Mommy," she whispered, "are we poor now?" Aroha looked down at her daughter, seeing fear in her small face. Her heart ached, but she forced a gentle smile, brushing Lonnie's hair behind her ear. "No, baby," she said softly. "We're just building our story." The words felt like a promise, not just a lie to comfort Lonnie, but a shield to protect her hope. From that night on, "building our story" became their secret phrase, a reminder that no matter how hard life hit them, they were creating something new together, step by step. Even when the motel smelled of dampness and old carpets, even when hunger gnawed at their bellies, Aroha kept repeating it quietly to herself. They were building their story. Lonnie began to smile more often, calling the flickering lights their stars, and slowly, little by little, they found comfort in each other. Every day was hard, but Aroha's determination grew. She refused to let the world tell them they didn't belong. They were small, but their dreams were bigger than the worn-out walls of that motel. In those nights of cold and struggle, a fire started inside both mother and daughter. It was quiet, hidden under their tired smiles and whispered words, but it was strong. That fire would later carry them through everything. A reminder that even when life gives you nothing, love and hope can build a story worth telling. One morning, Aroha was cleaning the small, messy office of a construction company. She had finished dusting the shelves and was wiping the windows when she opened her lunchbox. Inside, she found a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing from Lonnie. The picture showed a small house with pink flowers in the garden, a swing in front, and two stick figures holding hands. At the top, in Lonnie's childish handwriting, it said, "Me and Mommy's home." Aroha's eyes filled with tears. Her little girl had drawn their dream, even when they had nothing. Sephew, the owner of the company, walked by and noticed her staring at the drawing. He asked quietly, "That your little girl?" Aroha nodded, embarrassed, and quickly tried to hide the paper. She felt ashamed of their small, broken life, but Sephew smiled gently. He didn't look at her like a poor woman who had failed. He looked at her with understanding, like he saw her strength behind the tired eyes. Instead of pity, he offered her something she didn't expect. "I'm starting a new housing project," he said, "and I need someone reliable to help me. I want you as my assistant site manager. You'll learn everything, and we can grow together." Aroha froze. She had never imagined anyone would give her a real chance, a way to rebuild herself, without judging her past. It wasn't charity. It wasn't a handout. It was faith, someone believing in her ability to rise, even when life had knocked her down. Aroha looked at the drawing in her hand again, and then back at Sephew. Her heart raced. This was a turning point. She could see a path ahead, one that didn't depend on her family's approval or anyone else's kindness. It was her chance to work hard, to prove to herself that she could create something real for Lonnie and herself. She swallowed her fear and nodded. "I'll do it," she said softly. Sephew smiled again, this time with confidence in her. "Good. I can see you're someone who doesn't give up. That's exactly what we need." Aroha left that day with more than just a job. She carried hope in her pocket, a spark of belief that her life could change. Lonnie's little drawing had not only reminded her of their dream, but had also opened a door that she never expected. For the first time in months, Aroha felt a lightness in her chest. Someone believed in her, and maybe, just maybe, they could start building their story for real. That morning, as she walked home through the busy streets, Aroha held the drawing close to her heart and whispered to Lonnie, "Our home is coming, baby. We're building our story, and this time, we have a chance to make it real." The work was not easy. Every morning, Aroha woke up before sunrise, grabbed her helmet and boots, and headed to the construction site. She learned quickly, watching every move of the workers, asking questions, and practicing until she could do the tasks herself. Carrying bricks, checking measurements, reviewing plans. Everything was new and exhausting, but Aroha never gave up. She wanted to prove, first to herself, that she could rise again. At first, some people on the site doubted her. They whispered that a woman like her couldn't handle the hard work, that she didn't belong in a world of heavy tools and rough labor. But Aroha ignored the whispers. She worked harder, arriving early, staying late, and making sure every task was done carefully. Slowly, the workers began to notice. They saw her sweat, her determination, and the way she encouraged others instead of complaining. They started to respect her, not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. Sephew watched quietly from his office, impressed. He saw the way Aroha handled problems calmly, how she guided the workers, and how she never let small mistakes stop her. He saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had kept her going through the motel nights, through hunger and through shame. One day, when she solved a big problem that could have delayed the project, Sephew walked over, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't build houses, Aroha," he said softly, looking her in the eyes. "You build hope." The words hit her like sunlight breaking through clouds. She paused, letting them sink in. It wasn't about money or status. It was about creating something meaningful, something that could change lives. She realized that every wall she raised, every blueprint she checked, wasn't just a building. It was a promise to herself and to Lonnie. A promise that they could survive, that they could rise again, that they could have a life filled with dignity. From that day on, Aroha worked with even more purpose. She became a leader on the site, someone people turned to for guidance and inspiration. She didn't need anyone to tell her she was worthy. She saw it in the smiles of the workers, in the way Sephu trusted her, and in the hope that glimmered in Lonnie's eyes whenever she talked about their future home. Aroha understood finally that climbing back up was never just about money or status. It was about strength, courage, and refusing to let life break her spirit. Every brick she laid was a step toward rebuilding not just a house, but a life full of hope and promise. And with each passing day, she felt herself getting closer to the life she had dreamed of, a life where she and Lonnie could shine, no matter what the world had taken from them. When her family heard that Aroha was working on a construction site, they couldn't stop themselves from mocking her. Her sister laughed over the phone, calling her a glorified laborer, as if doing honest, hard work was something to be ashamed of. Her mother added her own cruel words, sneering, "What kind of woman lifts bricks instead of wearing them?" It felt like they were trying to crush her spirit again, to remind her that she had fallen from their idea of a proper life. At first, Aroha felt a flash of anger. She wanted to shout back, to tell them they didn't understand anything about strength or survival. But she stopped herself. She realized that replying to their gossip would only give them power over her feelings. Instead, she chose silence. She decided to let her actions speak louder than their words. Every comment they made became fuel, not a burden. At the construction site, she focused harder than ever. She studied the blueprints carefully, learning every detail until she could spot mistakes before they happened. She supervised the workers with fairness and patience, showing them respect and earning it in return. Each wall she raised, each beam she secured, felt like reclaiming a piece of her dignity, like taking back the control her family had tried to strip from her. Sometimes, she caught the other workers staring in surprise when she solved problems quickly or took charge of difficult tasks. She realized that this wasn't just about building houses. It was about building herself. Every brick laid wasn't just cement and stone. It was a step away from the shame her family tried to force on her. With every wall she finished, she felt a little taller, a little stronger, and a little more unstoppable. Even when her family continued to whisper behind her back, Aroha didn't care. Their words couldn't touch the quiet pride growing inside her. She had discovered something far more valuable than approval: self-respect and resilience. The laughter and judgment of her mother and sister became background noise, meaningless compared to the life she was creating for Lonnie and herself. Aroha learned that silence could be louder than shame. She didn't need to defend herself with words because her work, her dedication, and her courage were louder than any insult. Every day on the site, as the sun rose and fell over the buildings she helped create, she felt herself rising too. Slowly but surely, she was proving, not to them, but to herself, that a woman who works with her hands and her heart can build a life stronger than any words meant to break her. Months had passed since Aroha had started working on the construction site. One bright morning, she received a note from Lonnie's school inviting parents to a family builder's day. Aroha felt a mix of excitement and fear. She knew she had changed so much, but she also knew that her family's whispers and society's judgments still weighed on her. She had no fancy clothes, no polished shoes, only her dusty uniform from the site. She felt nervous about the stares she might get from other parents, imagining the quick judgments and whispered comments. When Aroha walked into the school hall holding Lonnie's hand, she felt the eyes of everyone turn toward her. The uniform was covered in dust, her hair slightly messy, and her hands still carried the faint smell of cement and paint. She wanted to shrink, to disappear, but Lonnie squeezed her hand tightly and whispered, "Mommy, you'll be fine." That small reassurance made her shoulders straighten and her head lift. When it was time for introductions, Lonnie's small voice rang out clear and proud. "This is my hero. She builds homes and dreams," she said, beaming at her mother. The words were simple, but they carried a power Aroha had never felt before. The room erupted in applause. Parents clapped, teachers smiled, and even other children cheered. Aroha felt warmth spreading through her chest, melting away months of humiliation, self-doubt, and fear. The pride in her daughter's eyes shone brighter than any judgment she had ever faced. From the back of the hall, Sephu stood quietly, watching with a soft smile. He knew the struggle Aroha had gone through, the sleepless nights, the hard work, and the courage she had shown. Seeing her recognized by her daughter and the school felt like a quiet confirmation that she was on the right path. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was inspiring. Aroha realized something important that day. She didn't need fancy clothes, wealth, or the approval of her family to feel worthy. She had her own story, built from sweat, tears, and love. She had built a life where her daughter could be proud of her. She had built hope. Every blueprint she had studied, every wall she had raised, every difficult decision she had made had led to this moment. A moment where she could finally see the impact of her hard work not just in buildings, but in the hearts of those who mattered most. As the applause continued, Aroha hugged Lonnie tightly. "Yes, baby," she whispered. "We are building our story." And in that hall, surrounded by claps, smiles, and admiration, she finally felt the weight of judgment lift. For the first time in months, she could see clearly. They weren't looking at a fallen woman. They were looking at someone who had risen, stronger than ever, and proud of it. That day, she knew that no humiliation, no gossip, and no harsh words could ever take away the life she was building with her daughter. After months of hard work, Aroha was promoted to site supervisor. She had earned the respect of the workers, her team, and even Sephu, who had been quietly watching her grow. The responsibilities were greater now, and she handled them all with patience, focus, and determination. Every day she arrived early, checked the progress, solved problems, and encouraged her team. She had come a long way from the nights in the motel, the exhausting double jobs, and the constant worry about bills. One afternoon, Sephu called her into the office. "Aroha," he said, "I need you to choose the first completed house to show our investors. Pick the one you think will impress them the most." Aroha felt a flutter of pride and responsibility. She had seen the houses take shape day by day, but she never expected to feel such importance placed on her opinion. With excitement, she followed Sephu to the row of finished houses, ready to pick the one she thought was best. But then she stopped. She froze. Her eyes widened as she took in the house in front of her. It was perfect, down to the smallest detail. The garden had pink flowers in exactly the spots she had seen in Lonnie's drawing. The small swing in front matched the one Lonnie had drawn. Even the window frames and the shape of the roof reminded her of the picture her daughter had made months ago. Her hand went to her mouth, and she looked at Sephu, speechless. "You remembered?" she whispered, disbelief and emotion mixed in her voice. Sephu nodded quietly, his eyes kind. "Every builder deserves a home of her own," he said softly. "I designed this one in honor of your little girl. I saw her drawing in your lunchbox that day, and I wanted you both to have a reminder that dreams can come true." Tears welled up in Aroha's eyes as she looked at the house. She felt a rush of gratitude, awe, and relief all at once. She had worked so hard to rebuild her life, to provide for Lonnie, and to rise above the humiliation and struggles. And now, here was a home that wasn't just another building. It was a symbol of hope, love, and dreams coming alive. Aroha realized that Sephu hadn't just given her a job or a chance to prove herself. He had given her a sign that her efforts mattered, that her journey, her courage, and her love for Lonnie were seen and valued. The house wasn't for sale yet, and she didn't need it to be. It was theirs in spirit, a reminder that even through the hardest times, their dreams could be built one step at a time. She touched the door gently and whispered to herself, "We really are building our story, baby. Look what we can do." Word spread quickly about Aroha's success. People in the neighborhood, at her daughter's school, and even in the construction world were talking about the woman who had risen from nothing to lead a major housing project. Soon her family heard about it. Her mother and sister arrived at the new estate one sunny afternoon, dressed in their best clothes, smiling and acting proud as if they had always believed in her. They carried expensive gifts, flowers, and words of praise, pretending that the nights in the motel, the whispers, and the harsh words never happened. Aroha greeted them politely at the door, holding Lonnie's hand. She noticed the fake pride in their eyes, the forced smiles, and the whispers of gossip they had once used to shame her. They spoke about her achievements, her promotion, and the beauty of the houses, acting as if they had supported her all along. Her mother said, "We're so proud of you, Aroha. You've really done Something amazing. Her sister nodded eagerly, adding, "We always knew you had it in you. We should celebrate together." Then her sister, with a hopeful smile, leaned slightly closer and said, "You know, maybe Lonnie and I could stay here for a few weeks, just until things settle down." Aroha looked at her daughter, who squeezed her hand, waiting silently. She felt the old pain flicker for a moment, the memories of those nights when her family had said, "We have no space for her." But instead of anger, Aroha felt calm. She had built a life with dignity, and nothing they said or did could change it. Aroha smiled softly, her voice steady and gentle, and said, "I'm sorry. There's no space." The words felt powerful yet quiet, carrying no malice, only the truth. The same words her family had once used to humiliate her were now the words of closure. They couldn't undo the years of struggle or the nights of tears, but they also couldn't take away what she had built for herself and Lonnie. Her mother and sister fell silent, their smiles faltering as they realized that their past cruelty no longer had any power. Aroha turned to Lonnie and whispered, "We did it, baby. We built our story, and no one can take it from us." Lonnie smiled, her eyes shining with pride and relief. That day, Aroha understood that real strength wasn't about revenge. It was about standing tall, protecting her heart, and living a life they could never control. She had given her daughter the greatest lesson of all, that love, courage, and perseverance always find a way. Even when the people who should have loved you first failed, Aroha's hard work and determination did more than just build houses. It built a reputation. News outlets and social media began sharing her story, calling her a role model for single mothers everywhere. People admired how she had turned struggle into strength, and how she led a team of workers with courage and skill. Her project became known not only for the beautiful homes it created, but for the way it gave opportunities to women who had been overlooked, proving that anyone could rise if they were given a chance and believed in themselves. With the savings she had carefully kept over the months, Aroha decided to do more than just build houses for herself. She started a fund aimed at helping homeless women, especially single mothers, find stability, jobs, and purpose. She remembered the nights she and Lonnie had spent in that cold motel, the fear, the hunger, and the uncertainty. She wanted to make sure no other mother had to feel that hopelessness. The fund provided small homes, training programs, and support so women could rebuild their lives, just like she had. The opening ceremony of the first community home funded by Aroha's initiative was a joyful day. Cameras flashed, reporters asked questions, and Aroha watched as women she had helped stepped into homes that they could finally call their own. Lonnie was the happiest of all, running around in her little dress, her laughter filling the air. When it was time to cut the ribbon, Lonnie jumped forward eagerly, holding the scissors with her tiny hands. "Mommy, we built our story, didn't we?" she said, giggling as the cameras clicked. Aroha's heart swelled with pride and emotion. She knelt down, hugging Lonnie tightly, feeling tears slide down her cheeks. "Yes, baby," she whispered, her voice trembling but full of joy. "And now we'll help others build theirs." The words weren't just for Lonnie. They were for every woman who had ever been told she was too small, too weak, or too unworthy. Every home they opened, every life they touched, was a reminder that love, hope, and hard work could create something greater than fear or cruelty ever could. That day, Aroha realized the true meaning of home. It wasn't just bricks and walls. It was safety, dignity, and the chance to dream again. She saw mothers holding their children, smiling with relief and pride. She saw women learning new skills and standing tall. And she knew that every hardship she had faced, every tear, every insult, every sleepless night, had led her here. Lonnie squeezed her hand and whispered, "We did it, Mommy." Aroha smiled through her tears, knowing that together, they had not only built a home, but a legacy, one that would help countless others find their own place in the world. Years passed, and Aroha's story became known across the country. Reporters and interviewers came to ask her how she had turned years of humiliation, rejection, and struggle into a life filled with respect, success, and purpose. They wanted to know her secret, the reason she never gave up even when the world seemed against her. Aroha smiled softly, thinking of all the nights she had spent crying quietly, the small victories that no one noticed, and the promises she had made to Lonnie. When asked how she did it, she said simply, "I didn't do it to prove anyone wrong. I did it to prove my daughter right, that love can build even when walls fall." The house she had once dreamed about, the one Lonnie had drawn on a small piece of paper months ago, now stood tall and proud. It wasn't just a building of bricks and cement. It was built from the courage, the determination, and every broken piece of her past that she had turned into strength. Every wall told a story of late nights, early mornings, endless work, and unwavering love. Every corner held the laughter and dreams of her daughter, the reminder that they had survived together. Aroha walked through the garden, now full of pink flowers just like Lonnie had drawn, and looked at the swing where her daughter had imagined endless playtimes. She remembered the rainy nights when they had nowhere to go, the motel rooms that felt cold and empty, and the harsh words of family who had once refused them. She smiled softly, knowing that none of that could hurt them anymore. Deep inside, Aroha felt a sense of peace. She knew Lonnie would never again stand at a door that refused her. She would grow up knowing that she deserved love, respect, and a place in the world, not because anyone else gave it to her, but because her mother had shown her how to claim it with courage. Aroha understood that her legacy was more than buildings or wealth. It was the life lessons she had passed on, the strength she had modeled, and the hope she had nurtured. She looked at Lonnie, swinging happily in the garden, and whispered, "We built more than walls, baby. We built a life that no one can take away." And in that moment, Aroha knew that all the pain, all the struggle, and all the tears had led to something far greater than she had ever imagined. A legacy of love, resilience, and the unshakable belief that even when life closes doors, courage and hope can always build a new home. They said there was no space for her child, so she built a world where every child would always belong. If you were inspired by Aroha and Lonnie's story of courage, love, and never giving up, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs hope today, and hit that like button to show that even the hardest struggles can lead to the most beautiful victories.